In the valley where the river bends like a silver serpent, there lies a small village called Makanda, a place where mornings smell of roasted maize and wet earth, and evenings echo with the laughter of children chasing the sun. But beneath the rhythm of daily life, shadows once moved, slow and unseen, waiting for their time. Among the thatched huts and mango trees lived a young girl named Amara. She was born on a night when the sky was clear and the stars seemed to sing her name. Her father called her Amara, which means grace, for she came like light into their home. But light and darkness often danced too close together. When Amara was still a child, her father went to the mines far away in the hills. He promised to return before the rains, but the rains came and went, and he never came home again. The message arrived months later, a letter folded in sorrow. He had been taken by a collapse underground. That day, her mother, Lila, stopped singing, and the village began to whisper that their family had fallen under a curse. In Cum, the old ways ruled strong. When sickness came, the elders called the witch. When crops failed, they poured blood at the edge of the river, believing the spirits of the water had to be pleased. And when death knocked on a door, they said the ancestors were angry. So when misfortune lingered in Lila's hut, the people looked to her daughter. They said, "The father died strange. The girl will bring more death if she stays." They called her the child of shadows. And Amara, small and barefoot, could only hide behind her mother's wrapper, tears glistening in her wide eyes. But even in fear, destiny finds a way to speak. One dry afternoon, when the air was thick and the sun burned red over the hills, a stranger walked into Nkum. He was not from the next village. His clothes were simple, his eyes calm, and in his hand, he carried not a charm, but a book. The people watched him closely as he greeted everyone with a smile that seemed to come from deep inside him. He said, "Good morning, my brothers and sisters. I bring water that never runs dry." The women laughed. "We have the river, stranger," one said, shaking her head. But the man only smiled again and replied, "Yes, you have the river. But I speak of another kind of water, water for the heart." The people grew quiet. His words flowed like rain on dry ground. He spoke of a man called Jesus, one who healed the sick, touched the untouchable, and called little children his own. He told them of a light that shines even in the darkest place. And behind a mango tree, listening with eyes wide as the moon, stood Amara. She had never heard a voice like that before, firm yet kind, simple yet full of power. The stranger said, "The Lord says, 'Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest.'" Amara stepped forward shyly and whispered, "Sir, can he give rest to someone the spirits have rejected?" The stranger knelt down and looked into her eyes. "Child," he said, "no spirit can reject what heaven has chosen." That night, Amara could not sleep. The stranger's words kept echoing in her heart. She dreamt of standing by the same river that had taken her father's life. But this time, the river shone with light, clear and golden like morning fire. And across the water came a voice, soft but strong, saying, "Amara, why do you fear the night? I am the light that the darkness cannot overcome." She whispered in her dream, "Who are you, Lord?" And the voice answered, "I am he who knew your name before your mother called you." Then she woke up, heart racing, her body trembling with awe. She ran to her mother's mat. "Mamara," she said, "I saw him, the man from the stranger's story. He called me by my name." But her mother only sighed and said, "Hush, my child. Dreams are tricks of hunger and heat. Sleep." Yet Amara could not sleep again. For deep inside her spirit, something had awakened, a light no darkness could explain. The next morning, drums beat in the village square. The old witch, Mamaradoro, had come down from her hill. Her eyes were cold like river stones, and her hands were covered in ash. She said, "The child has spoken to the spirits. She must be cleansed, or the drought will come." The people nodded in fear. They said, "Do what must be done." That evening, they brought Amara to the river. The witch drew circles in the sand and chanted old words that smelled of death. The villagers stood around with torches, their faces hard. Lila cried out, "She is only a child." But no one listened. Then, as the witch raised her hand to cast the charm, the wind changed. A deep rumble rolled across the sky. Lightning tore through the clouds and struck the river with a blinding flash. The people screamed and scattered. The witch stumbled back in terror, her charms falling into the water. And there, running through the crowd, came the stranger, his book in one hand, his voice rising above the thunder. "No god of this earth has power over her," he shouted. "The Lord of heaven has spoken." The storm broke. The wind calmed, and a single beam of sunlight pierced the clouds, falling on Amara where she knelt by the riverbank. The villagers fell silent. Even the witch could not speak. Something sacred had entered the air, something that made every heart tremble. When morning came, Amara awoke safe beside her mother. The stranger was gone. Only his book lay beside her, the same book that carried words of the light. Her mother opened it and tried to read the words. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Amara did not understand all the words, but she understood one thing: the light had chosen her. And though the night still waited beyond the trees, she was no longer afraid. She rose to her feet and walked through the fields, the book pressed to her chest, the first rays of dawn touching her face. The village of Makanda watched her go, that small girl who had faced the spirits and lived. And the voice of the narrator fades with the morning wind. In the land where night had reigned too long, a small flame had begun to burn. And though the world did not yet know it, dawn was coming to Makanda. The night Amara met him began like any other in her small village beyond the hills. The wind carried dust, the smell of wood smoke, and the songs of crickets. But inside her heart was a silence deeper than the dark around her. She had wandered away, barefoot, following the moonlight on the path. She didn't know where she was going, only that something inside her was calling. Her grandmother's stories echoed in her mind, stories of the man who healed the blind, who walked on water, who promised to return. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "God, are you truly there?" The night held its breath. Then, from the stillness came a sound, soft, like footsteps moving on air. Amara turned, and there he was, a man clothed in light, not the light of fire or lamp, but the light that lives. It glowed around him like dawn breaking through her soul. Her heart began to race. Her knees trembled, yet she was not afraid. The man looked at her with eyes that seemed to know every pain she'd ever carried. He smiled, a smile that made the stars grow dim. Then he spoke. His voice was gentle, yet it moved through her like thunder wrapped in honey. "Amara," he said, "why do you run in circles when I have made your path straight?" She fell to her knees. No one had ever said her name like that. It wasn't just sound, it was meaning. It was home. Who are you?" she whispered. The man took a step closer. His presence calmed the air. Even the crickets went silent. "I am the one who walked your rivers when they were dry," he said softly. "I am the fire that did not burn your ancestors in the storms. I am the promise you forgot." Amara's eyes widened. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her heart. "One day, he will come again." Tears filled her eyes. "You? You are Jesus." "Yes, child," he said, "and I have come for you." At that moment, the ground beneath her feet began to shine. The dry grass turned green. The wind carried the scent of lilies and rain. The night came alive. Amara could not speak. She could only weep as his hand touched her face. Warmth, pure, golden, flowed through her. Every wound in her heart melted away. "Amara," he said, "your name means grace. And grace is never lost. You were never forgotten." She looked up through her tears. He smiled again, the kind of smile that could raise the dead. Then his voice grew strong, clear as the morning call of the hornbill. "Go back, Amara. Your story is not finished. Tell them I still walk their roads. Tell them I still heal. Tell them I am coming again." And then, just as suddenly as he appeared, the light faded. The night returned. But Amara was not the same. She stood, her heart burning like a new sun inside her chest. The flute of the wind sang again, and she whispered, "He came for me." Amara began to walk back toward the village. But now, every step carried a song. Every breath carried faith. Every tear became light. And as she walked, the dawn began to rise over the land. A new day for Amara. A new story for the world. The dawn came slowly over the hills of Makanda. The first rooster crowed. Smoke curled from the clay huts. The world began to wake, but Amara had already been reborn. Her feet were dusty, her hair tangled from the night, yet her face shone like the sunrise. As she walked back toward the village, the wind followed her, carrying whispers of the divine. She was silent, but her heart was singing. Every step beat to a rhythm the earth seemed to understand. When she reached the river, she stopped. The same river where she once came to weep, where she threw stones in anger, asking why her life was so heavy. Now, the waters seemed to glow. She knelt, touched the surface, and saw her reflection smiling back at her. She whispered, "You came for me, Lord. I will tell them." Amara climbed the slope into the village. The children saw her first. They ran, shouting, "Amara! Amara is back." The elders turned, surprised. She had left in sorrow, but now she returned in joy. Even her mother froze, a calabash of water in her hands, staring at her daughter as if seeing her for the first time. Amara walked straight to her, tears of light in her eyes. "Mamara," she said softly, "he found me." Her mother frowned. "Who, child?" Amara smiled, the kind of smile that made others feel peace without understanding why. "Jesus, Mamara, the one you prayed to when I was sick, the one grandmother sang about. He came, and he spoke to me." The villagers gathered. Whispers filled the air. Some laughed softly, thinking she had seen a dream. Others stepped closer, drawn by the quiet fire in her eyes. Amara told them everything: the dry wind, the light, the voice that called her by name. She told them how he touched her heart, how her fears vanished like smoke in the wind, and how he said, "Tell them I still walk their roads." At first, they were silent. Then, the old grandmother lifted her hands and began to sing the ancient hymn of hope. "The Lord walks again. The Lord walks again among his people." One by one, the villagers joined her. Drums began to play. Hands clapped. Voices rose. The entire village sang until the morning light touched every hut, every tree, every soul. That evening, when the fire crackled and stars danced above, Amara sat with the children at her feet. She told them of the man who knew her name, who shone like the dawn, who came to save, not the strong, but the lost. And as she spoke, something moved in their hearts. Even the smallest child could feel it, a stirring, a warmth, a knowing that this Jesus she spoke of was real. From that day forward, Amara was never the same. She became a storyteller, a messenger. She would walk from village to village, speaking of the man who still walks the dusty roads of Africa, who still whispers through the wind, who still calls names in the night. And wherever she went, hearts changed, eyes opened. The hopeless found joy again. Years later, the elders of Makanda would say, when Amara spoke, you could almost hear heaven listening. Because she carried more than a story. She carried a truth, living, burning, gentle. The truth that Jesus still finds us, even in the most forgotten corners of the world. And when she told the story of her encounter, people didn't just listen, they believed. He came for Amara, and he still comes for us. The years passed, and Amara's story became more than memory, it became a movement. What began as one girl's encounter with the divine grew into a light that refused to die. Everywhere she went, the sound of hope followed. The villagers would say, when Amara arrives, the wind smells like rain. For her presence carried the scent of promise, a sign that God had walked among them. She no longer spoke with trembling or fear. Her voice had become strong, calm, steady, like the river that finds its way to the sea. She taught the children how to pray. She comforted the widows, and she spoke to warriors about peace. When drought came, Amara led the people to the fields and prayed aloud. Lord, you once made dry bones live. Let the earth live again. And the rains fell. Not once, but 3 times that year. They called it Amara's rain. Her story reached far beyond Makanda. Travelers carried her name to other lands. Some said she healed the sick with a single touch. Others said she could hear the voice of heaven even in her dreams. But Amara never claimed greatness. When people knelt before her, she would smile and lift them up, saying, I am not the light. I only carry his reflection. She reminded them always, Jesus is not far away. He walks our paths, eats our food, shares our sorrows. He is as close as your next breath. As Amara grew older, her hair turned silver, but her eyes, oh, her eyes, still shone like stars. The children she once taught had become leaders. The songs she sang had become their heritage. Every evening, under the great baobab tree, the people would gather. They'd light torches, beat gentle rhythms on drums. And Amara would tell once more the story that changed her life. The night when heaven found her in the wilderness. Her voice would float through the air, soft but powerful, and the flames would dance to the rhythm of her words. Amara elaborated. I was no one, just a girl who ran away. But Jesus came for me. And that is why I can never stop telling his story. Because if he could find me in the dark, he can find anyone. When she spoke those words, even the wind seemed to listen. The children's eyes would glimmer in the firelight, and the elders would nod slowly, whispering, "The Spirit of God walks with her." One morning, when the sun was still young and the air smelled of mango blossoms, Amara did not come out of her hut. They found her lying peacefully on her mat, a gentle smile upon her face. Her hands were folded across her chest, as if still in prayer. But though she was gone, something of her remained. A warmth, a peace, a presence that lingered like music long after the song had ended. In time, the people built a small chapel where her hut once stood. On its walls they carved the words she spoke most often. He came for me, and he still comes for us. Pilgrims began to visit from far and wide, not to worship Amara, but to remember what she taught. That faith is not a story of the past, but a living river flowing through every generation. And as the years turned into decades, the children of Makanda grew into teachers, healers, and prophets, each carrying a piece of Amara's fire in their hearts. Her story became legend. Her name became song. And across Africa, when the sun dipped low and the drums began to speak, the storytellers would gather the people and say, "Once, there was a girl named Amara. She met the light, and she never let it go." Amara's legacy is not in monuments or riches. It lives in hearts awakened by grace, in the laughter of those who once wept, in the quiet conviction that Jesus still walks among us. She was one girl, but through her, generations learned that no life is too small for heaven to touch. And somewhere, beyond time and dust, Amara walks with him still,